Fine. Hello, gorgeous.
Hello.
I'm so happy that we get to do this conversation.
I'm so excited. We could talk for hours though.
I know, and so I'm going to try and rein it in. But if you're listening to Lou and I chat and we don't talk about what we're supposed to be talking about, that's just life. My first question to you is, in your life, what is sacrosanct?
Ooh. Sacred. What is sacred?
Yeah, what is too valuable, important, sacred to be ignored, or to be, that is kind of, what's the non-negotiables in your life?
People.
Mm.
People, relationships with friendships, relationships, connections with connection, that's the word, like non-negotiable. I cannot live a life without connecting with another and honoring and getting to know and learning and growing, because I feel like without each other we can't learn and grow, we can't evolve. And we're here in this, especially this time in the world of great human evolution. We're moving through from the old age of Pisces into Aquarius, and we're evolving like at the most incredible rapid pace.
I love that so much, and I love it because I just told you what you wrote on your form, and it's like, and then when I asked you again, and you were like, "Oh, I don't know," but it's the same thing. And for you, relationship and connection isn't just with people, you know, it is with the planet, it's with the chakras of the planet, it's with the animals, it's with the minerals, it's with the spirits, it's with like everything.
I feel like everything is to be experienced, and everything is a conversation. I have a conversation, a relationship. I mean, I'm looking now, and I've got two plants like, hi, and you know, there's always a conversation, there's always a reciprocity. And the earth, she's alive. I know she's alive, and she's a part of me. How I treat my body is how I treat the earth. The mountains are alive, the rivers are alive, everything's alive. And sometimes, I will be honest, I can get a bit overwhelmed, like, shit, haven't spoken to the rivers today, or shit, like there is so much to commune with. But you know, I can't ever imagine not having those relationships. That, you know, if I walked through this world thinking there was just silence, that terrifies me. The thought that everything was just a tree, just another human, how scary would life be? So yeah, the earth is alive. And you mentioned the chakras as well, and that's been a lot of my work. That is my work, especially over the sort of since 2015. The earth is alive. She calls us to these sacred sites. We will all at some point get called to particular places across the world, or you know, a river that's been calling us, or a mountain. But there is 7 major chakras on the planet, and I was called by each one of them to come and be a part of the activation of those chakras. And they speak, they commune, they tell us what we need, what they need, as part of the whole great grid of Gaia awakening. And I think it's just so beautiful to have these relationships, and it's so important to me. And I probably went off on a tangent then, because it's quite a big topic.
No, but it's like, so for me, I think there are people listening to this who would intellectually or cerebrally agree with you, right? Like, yeah, you know, relationship, connection is really, really important. For me, what is so special about you is you walk the talk. You know, you're like me, like you're fully in. When you say you're into something, like you're all in, and you do it, you live it. It's not a nice idea. And when I say to you, you know, how is this a non-negotiable in your life? Like it just is. Just like it shows. So can you give us a daily example of what communing with or having conversations with everything and maintaining those relationships looks like?
I feel like I live at home. I have a husband who I've been, we've been together 24 years. I have 2 kids, and I am responding to their needs all the time. I wake up and the first thing that happens is a cat. There's a cat. I've got to respond to the cat's needs. But it doesn't feel heavy or pressured because it's reciprocal. It's a relationship, and so I respond to my family's needs, and I can't have external. There's no radios and no TVs going on, and it was lots of music, but I can't be invaded by anything that isn't of my world. And so when I've responded to my family's needs, and I'm starting, I've meditated or I've connected in however I need to myself, there is then the responding to the needs of the greater. So the next level is clients, people who my students, and then I start to see the plants in my garden. All of a sudden the roses are calling. They do need watering, and as much as I'd like to just ignore them, I've got stuff to do. I've got to go out and attend to their needs. So I'm always responding to their needs, and then there is the greater calls. So the responding, my purpose in life, like what am I here to create? I'm having to create so I can feel my guides, or I can feel the earth calling. So I am in service to Gaia, to the earth as a living being. I tend to her chakras. When she calls, I have to drop all the needs of my family and go. And that's, actually, luckily my husband's got to a point where he accepts that has to happen. So, for instance, Egypt has been calling. I'm like, okay, I'm responding. What has to happen? Who do I need to take? What, and it's not just Egypt, it's a desert. Okay. And then I'm hearing the mountains of Sinai. And so I'm having to respond to that, and keep those agreements as well. So I'm listening. A lot of this I have to get out of my own way, because even when I'm, say, for instance, I'm running a journaling course in the morning. So it's like 5 mornings, once a week, once a month. The questions that I'm channeling before bed, or, the night before, I'm listening. Like, they can't come from me like, right, we're going to do this because I feel like it. It's like, it's got to cut. I'm responding to the energy bubble of the group, like, and the needs. So I'm channeling that information from somewhere that's beyond myself. Sometimes I don't want to do it. A lot of the time my human self's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go outside and do the roses. I've got stuff to do. Like, you have to respond. I don't want to ask 3 dark questions in journaling because that's really dark. I want to have some fun, but it's not up to me. It's like, I'm in service, so I'm responding and listening.
I love that. And also I'm in that group right now, and I've also just learned that when you ask questions and my head brain goes and tries to find the answer, like, I've learned to let go and allow the question to wash over me and for something else to respond. And this morning I was rereading my answers and going, I don't think I answered any of the questions, but I definitely got shit out and I feel a lot better for it, right? So I know, I really get that. There was something I wanted to ask you specifically about what you just shared, because it isn't in what you said, but it has to be in order for you to be able to do what you do. So if I was listening to you on a surface level, it could sound really martyry, and it could sound like you put yourself last, and that you tend to your own needs, right? But I also know that you wouldn't and couldn't show up in the way that you do if you weren't tending to yourself as well.
How can anyone live life without tending to themselves? Like people don't know, if you know me, you get it, but I'm in a pretty good state of joy a lot of the time. I'm in joy. Like, I love these relationships. Like, sometimes I don't want to speak to my kids in the morning. I'm like, stop talking to me. I'm human. And actually, I'm like, sometimes I'm like, you're talking to me a lot right now. Like, I can't process all of that. And I'm human. I have to have my boundaries. And we're all we laugh at each other because, we're all quite chatty as a family as well. But I need to respond to my own needs. Like, sometimes I'm like, I get my energy from being in service. Like, it's reciprocal. Yeah, sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't want to take it to Great Egypt. Like, that's my human self. Like, I really don't want to do it. I don't want to do it again. I've done it already. And then the other part of me is like, oh my gosh, we're going to Egypt. How exciting.
And so for me, that piece that I want to tap in on for you, because I feel like I've watched you evolve and I've watched you lean in and I've watched you trust more. And if you're listening to this and you haven't read both of, and I'm going to say all because I know there's another one coming, Lou's books, please do. But there's this bit, like, for me, reading your books was wonderful because I know you as a person, but then I also read the books and I also experienced like a mirror journey that I kind of relived as I read your book, which is wonderful. But there's this bit before you went to Tibet, I think, where you were scared, where you were going on your own, and where it was like, it felt like an ask too far. And I've witnessed the change in you since then.
Every time I get called, and a lot of my journeys, and when I say I'm responding all the time, communicating, is callings, big calls, little calls. Either way, sometimes I am pushed. When I took a group to Egypt back in 2017, 4 or 5 days before, 50 people were killed in the desert where we were going. I'm like, no, sorry, Gaia, too much. You can't ask me to bring my people to the desert. You cannot ask me to do this. And I have this is like my human self. And it's very much of the, the hero's journey. When you look at Joseph Campbell's journeys, it's very much like you get the call and then you deny it. I accept that's part of myself. But I now know how much every time I get called, I step up. It's a big ask. It's a massive ask. I did take my people to the desert because everything was saying it's safe. It's safe for you to do this. I had to learn to trust, that communion, that inner sense, that inner knowing. And I have grown. I mean, you can only grow from tension, really. If we sit in our comfort zones continuously and say, no, I'm not going to do that unless it's really easy, then we're just going to stay where we stay. But
how have you learned to trust that voice? How have you learned to know that it's safe, to know that you're not making it up or completely crazy?
That's certainly why I wrote those 2 books in the end, because I feel like when we are saying yes to service, and I certainly don't mean martyrdom, I really don't. I in fact, no, we are done with the age of Pisces. Martyrdom is no more. But when we have to, like in any relationship, we build this trust. Like, I've been in a relationship for 24 years. We joke, we say 7, possibly even 8 different people in that time. And so we're having to relearn who we are now. My husband says, I catch you go so far and then I catch you up, finally get to where you are and you move on again. But he has to learn to trust me and I have to learn to trust him in new ways. And it's like this constant bit with passing those bits of information to each other, so we know Lou's going to jump again and I'm going to trust that she's going to come back. And it's the same with any relationship we have, with people, with with the earth, with medicine. I have the same relationship with the medicine. So, you know, I have a beautiful plant medicine teacher, and she taught me about really listening to the medicines, say, that grow in my garden, and nettle. Like, I have this amazing relationship with nettle, but do you know what? Last year I was like, I don't want to speak to nettle. Just didn't want to speak to nettle. I literally just, and then had a really upset stomach, and I was like, I'm sorry, nettle, I'm coming back. Nettle was very, very forgiving for my deciding that I wasn't going to speak to her all year. It's like, now, you know, I've got the medicine. But, you know, it was so beautiful that I had that relationship with her, that I could go back to her and ask her for her medicine, and we'd built up such a great relationship. And sometimes it's like, you know, like you and I might not speak to each other for 6 months, but I know that I could pick up a phone and be like, hey, how you doing? Not where have you been?
I can't even imagine ever saying that to you.
I mean, I love
but I think in many ways that's because you and I both exist in this world that we're all in.
Yeah.
And we're all in trying to unravel and remember who we are, figure out what we're doing here, do it, be it, show up, experience, learn. And it's very weavy. It's the best way I can describe it.
I can only have relationships with people who know that if I don't respond to their text message, it's not personal.
Yeah.
It's just.
That brings another question that I've been wanting to ask. Do you think that being in service or living in this way that we're describing is for everyone? Do you think it's just that not everyone has woken up yet, or do you think there's different types of people? Like, I'm curious about that.
I love this question. So one of the things is I just love people. I love people. I love that we are so unique, that we are one and we are so different. And not everyone is going to have the same relationship with the earth that, say, I have, because they're not meant to. Just like I have no freaking idea about very logistical, sciencey, methodical things. I'm not saying there isn't a place for that. My husband's well into all of that sort of stuff. It's not my thing, and I don't need to know that. But he does, and that's his place in the world. I feel that, so not everybody, and that's okay, not everyone is going to be being called by sacred science and asked to drop everything and show up and share stones and do ceremony. However, I do feel that everyone is waking up to seeing the aliveness and the sacredness in all things. So you might not be into chatting with nettle and gathering her medicine, but I do feel like when I say that to, say, people in my world who are more muggle, and I use that word as a very tongue-in-cheek, but you know, who would be like, oh, what the hell, I see a shift in consciousness where that isn't so frowned upon.
And for me, there's something really interesting in that around, okay, so I mean this nicely, but you and I are not as young as we once were.
No.
I mean it nicely because there's nothing wrong with aging, right? Except we live in a society that has trends, and it has things it likes and things it doesn't like, and things it pushes forward and things it pulls back. And when you and I was going to say made the decision, there was no decision, but it was stepped onto our path and listened to what was alive and awake and true in us and wanted us to follow it. It wasn't fashionable, it wasn't trendy. There was very much this kind of witch wound piece of going against the grain and being sure who you could trust. And what I see now is it is trendy and safe to be into crystals, to have tinctures and plants and candles and do moon ceremonies and just all of these things. And there's a part of me that is human that's like, how very dare you? And there's where were you when it was hard, right? And there's a part of me that's spiritual that's like, oh, it feels so good to have this be more integrated in society. And then there's a third piece, the kind of witness part of me, that's like, this way of being, like what you said, this way of being and living isn't for everybody. And what I hope and desire for all of us is for this shift in consciousness and allowing to allow people to get clearer on who they are, which is why all my work is know yourself, trust yourself, be yourself, you know, empowerment, embodiment, and full self-expression. But it's not going to look how mine does, and it's not going to look how yours. It might mimic, there might be some mirroring, but I really want people to get clear on what their true signature vibration, frequency, and essence is, and share and follow that and share that in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a little bit like, you know, I definitely had that when it all became really trendy. What I actually did was disappear. So I was a bit like, what is all these influencers talking all of this stuff, and they're just repeating stuff or reading stuff? Or what I struggled with was the blatant plagiarizing and not referencing. It was just like the hits, and I was like, oh, I'm out of here. And I literally was like, came off social media and stopped posting. I was just like, I don't want to be associated with that sort of fakiness. And I had a lot of judgment. I had to do loads and loads of processing around it. And I started to think, I thought, it's mainstream, isn't it? It's just, that's what happens. It's just become mainstream. And do I, you know, would I rather it not be, would I rather someone not be just sharing the information because no one owns it anyway? Or am I enjoying the world now it's open more? And I am. And so
me too.
It is beautiful. And there's something what I've learned, and I think this comes with age, and I love growing older, is there gets a point where if you're not in integrity, you will pay the consequences for that. So in time, young whippersnappers plagiarizing someone's work and not really giving credit where credit's due, which I think is really, really beautiful. I think it's such a beautiful thing to acknowledge your teachers and, you know, or share from a place of true wisdom and integrity. Or you just, you know, that's just their life. They'll have to deal with it. But also, I love listening to Lisa Lister. Her we caught up, and I just love that woman. And I listened to her book which is brilliant. And she actually touches on this. She was like, don't judge the young girls who are putting crystals in their bras because they're the emerging witches. They've begun somewhere too. And I was like, thanks, Lisa.
Well, and also, I'm sure that there was the generation above us felt the same way, right? And
totally.
And it works both ways, because if I look at the feminism before us, I'm like, what? How did you like this? And there will be the generation above us who look at the way that we do things and think and feel exactly the same way. And there's a point where the student becomes the teacher, right? And I'm really open to that. And I love having those conversations, but I do sometimes have to get my patience head on, like on purpose. And I see my dad do it with me, right? Like he's like not listening. And then I'll say something and he'll be like, hang on, say that again. And and now I'm experiencing doing that the other way. And I think there's this beautiful piece where we all have something to learn from each other, even if the learning is through frustration or disappointment or bitterness or, you know, all of those not self themes. There's like, that's how we learn. To bring it full circle, you said earlier, you know, we learn through
each other,
traction, discourse,
through the tension. Yeah. And what's really funny, like I even wrote about this in my first book, which was, I remember, like, you know, when I started teaching and I had like this total messiah complex going on. I was like, I am pretty much Jesus Christ and I can heal everybody. And, you know, it wasn't until I have a teacher who's just like, you know, do your shadow work. And I love shadow work. It's like my favorite work to do now. Like when I see when I see young whippersnappers coming along and they're doing the love and light brigade, and you're like, yeah, you just need to do shadow work. And I love
And that
that.
works the other way. Like, I spent far too long in the shadow realms, right? And I attract a lot of people who love it there and who find it much harder to own their light. The last 3 years for me have been about owning my light. And there's this beautiful piece about it can be shadow work to own your light.
Well, exactly. If you can't see your light, it's a shadow. And that's my favorite work as well. Like, I just like, let's see the parts of us that we can't see. And that's why I love people and humans and the plant world, because they will reflect back to you those parts of you that you're projecting and you can't own. And we're here to evolve as humans, and we need each other to get that traction, that tension, and to see it. And me like being like, that's it, I'm not going to be part of this fake ass world anymore. Like, I'm going to go and hide in my cave and just be a witch to my local people, And she's like, oh, get your head out your ass. And you just want to, why don't you just show up as well?
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. I should probably do that.
Yeah.
I certainly
have my own journey with that. I have loved this conversation, and we could talk forever and ever and ever. I'm curious if there's any message that you've got that we haven't, that's kind of been in what we've talked about that hasn't come out. And then I'm going to take you into the after hours lounge and ask you one more question for our patrons.
Do you know, for me, it really is in these times about being courageous enough to see our whole self, and laugh and be willing to accept that we don't know everything. And if I always say this, we're building a time of a divine union with each other and within ourselves, and so everyone's showing us those parts of ourselves that we don't always want to see and own. But as we move into what's very hairy times in humanity, I feel like the lightness comes from this courage and willingness to go, I don't know, or to be open and share and to be vulnerable, and the willingness to be courageous to connect on the deeper level. Like, what I've seen, I'm really lucky. I'm not lucky, blessed to have been in a relationship for so long that I've got the courage to have that with everybody. Like, I get into instant deep relationships because I've got the courage to do it, because it helps me grow. And I see the next generation who have really lacking quite a lot of social skills because of the tech. They're not willing to lean into the uncomfortableness that comes when you're going to connect with someone on a deeper level, that's going to bring some tension, that's going to bring some growth. Like, lean in, people. Like, we are going through the eye of the needle. Like, sit in those uncomfortable spaces with each other, and hold those uncomfortable spaces for others without judgment. If you can sit with someone and you don't agree with them, but you're willing to sit with them anyway, in curiosity, and get through the other side and find that relationship. Oh, that is what we need right now. I just want to see people uniting. Like, that's where my heart is coming from, and I know it's happening, and I know what looks like the division is actually like, it's the unity is coming, but it's going to take courage. So just lean into the uncomfortable spaces. Be comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Thank you. I love that. And I feel like there's an important part around also allowing ourselves to understand what makes us also comfortable. And that doesn't mean numbed. And because I want to move into this next bit, but I feel like there's an inquiry for people to understand and distinguish for themselves what brings me comfort versus what brings me numbing, like void, nothing, I don't have to feel. because I feel like a real disconnect from comfort as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. The void is huge. A lot that has become a numbing has become normal.
Yeah. Okay, my love, I'm going to put all your links in.
Thank you.
Where's the best place for people to come find you if they want to connect with
Come
you?
and get me on Instagram, because I became a rebel. I was like, I'm not doing Facebook anymore. I'll probably come back at some point. I'm on Instagram, and jump onto my newsletter as well. And go and get my books. So on Audible, and I just love to hear feedback. So if you've read them and gone, me too, let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Big love.